Entertainment, presented by Courtyard by Marriott Hotels.
Our reigning world champion carries the #1 plate on his car, and of course it's the first time that has been the case for anybody other than Andy Priaulx in the World Touring Car Championship. His teammates, Gabriele Tarquini, Ricard Rydell, Jordi Genet and Thiago Monteiro, all race winners, and most of them have won here as well. Thiago and Jordi last year, and the other drivers yet to taste victory at Puebla, but in last year's second race, SEAT scored not just the top 5 with their 5 turbo diesels, but a top 6 sweep courtesy of Tom Coronel's petrol SEAT as well. That, though, John Cleland, looks a highly unlikely eventuality here, certainly as far as race 1 goes, with BMW starting in front for the first time ever.
Yes, BMWs have never started on the front row here. They've never won a race here, but it's a long race. It's 16 laps. It's very twisty. And I think, as I said before, this track, if it was down at sea level, would most definitely, because of the nature of its slow corners, a number of first gear corners, only one very long straight. It's only 125 mile an hour, and you only get into top gear once. It's really a BMW rear-wheel drive track. But we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, I've stopped calling these races now in terms of who I think might win the race, because I don't think I've got one right yet. So I'm going to sit back and watch for a minute or two.
But actually, that's a great facet about this World Touring Car Championship, is that it is very hard to predict a winner. Even if you might have a suspicion about a certain manufacturer's car having an advantage, it's often hard to guess who the winner's going to be. And certainly you and I would have lost our shirts on qualifying yesterday, because neither of us, I think, would have given BMW's Augusto Farfus a chance of claiming pole position here. History teaches you an awful lot. It's not just bunk, but he certainly debunked the history. And you can see from those pictures from yesterday, the reaction was enormous among the BMW drivers. It was a massive surprise.
Yeah, I mean, they've worked really hard. They were disappointed in the results that they got from Curitiba, and they've come back right at the front, as you can see. Farfus on pole, Priaulx alongside him. Then you've got this Tarquini, Rydell, Muller and Monteiro, SEAT barrage behind him. And given that the first race is a rolling start, these two BMWs have to really work together. They shouldn't be fighting with each other in the first couple of corners. They should be working together, try and get round the first lap, pull out a couple of car lengths over the SEATs, and then fight with each other. But if they trip over each other to begin with, then the SEATs will be all over them. Now, the thing here is they've built hugely high curbs, and you'll see these brightly painted red parts to the curbs. They didn't have that last year. It's making everyone stay on track, as opposed to shortcutting, cutting the corners and bringing all the rubbish on board. Now, the downside is that on a really busy first lap with 24 cars knocking the living daylights out of each other, all it's going to take is just to run off line slightly, hit one of those things, and it'll drag. It could even drag a wheel off, at very worst. But I mean, at best, you could get away with putting a big hole in the sump of the engine.
Yes, absolutely. They are potentially very dangerous. Well, from Jaap van Lagen to Ivan Muller, Lada and SEAT, 2 of our 4 major manufacturers involved in the championship. We've got Chevrolet and BMW, of course. We've talked about SEAT. We've talked about the BMWs. Chevrolet have a similar number of podiums to BMW here. Just 1 car on a podium in 18 podium spots. Honda have had as many cars on the podium here, and they're not even present in the championship and have not ever had a factory outfit in the series. SEAT have 8 podium finishes here in 3 previous years of racing, and next best is Alfa Romeo, who had 7, including a number of 1-2 results here. It was a happy hunting ground for Alfa Romeo, particularly for Fabrizio Giovanardi and Salvatore Tavano. Augusto Farfus got on the podium here and also won a race in 2006. He was 2nd in race 1 and 1st in race 2, and I tell you what, he would give his eye teeth to get that result here either way round in 2009.
Yeah, for sure. The Chevrolets last year here were, I think from memory, they were on the front row, if not they were certainly up there. But this time around, they're way back. I mean, the first of them is Nicola Larini on the 6th row of the grid, and then Alan Menu and Rob Huff on the 7th row of the grid. They're just way out of contention at the moment, and I think they've got some hard work to do when they get back to Europe, and maybe not even that. When they get to Africa, to Marrakesh, they're going to wish that they'd had a longer winter testing, I would think.
And probably a drier winter testing as well. They've had a lot of wet weather running. And you're right, last year, Nicola Larini, who is 11th here in the brand new Cruise, was second to Geordie Genet. And Rob Huff was 4th, Alamenu was 5th. And that's certainly something that they're not expecting, or they weren't expecting for this weekend, and may well not be expecting for Marrakesh. But it's a brand new circuit, and so basically everybody goes with a plain white piece of paper as their setup sheet. And engineering counts for an awful lot, and you have to say, for the Chevrolet team, the RML outfit that runs those Chevrolets, engineering is their business. They are supremely good at that, so they have as good a chance of doing well there as anyone else.
Yeah, and it's going to take them a minute or two to get that right, though, because they have carried over some components from the old car. It's a completely new looking car, much more modern than the old Lassetti. Just in this biofuel diesel, it's just interesting that the fuel this year, the FIA have introduced lots of different things. They've introduced limits on noise, air pollution. They're doing the bit for sort of world peace, I think. And they're highly environmentally friendly. The biodiesel's 10% of that diesel is produced from rapeseed oil. So they're doing their bit for the environment and the eco-friendly parts,
Well, it's something that they're working on with the road car model, so it makes a lot of sense to have that sort of parallel development with the race cars that accelerates the development of eco-friendly cars, more biological components going in rather than a huger reliance on fossil fuels. And I'm sure all the manufacturers would be very keen not only to be doing it, but to be seen to be doing that research. And for the FIA, the World Touring Car Championship is really a sort of torch-bearing series with regards to its global impact. Now, looking here at Felix Portero, we saw a moment or two ago Sergio Hernandez in the BMW Italia Spain outfit suiting up, getting into his car. Well, Portero, of course, basically swapped seats with Hernandez, not willingly last year. At the end of last year, Hernandez, who had won the Independence Trophy with the Pro Team BMW crew, was picked up by BMW Italia Spain, and Felix Portero was dropped and then found a berth at Pro Team, who had lost both their drivers at the end of last year because Stefano D'Aste moved on and has since joined Vika Sport.
And interestingly, both these guys, they're in each other's seat effectively from last year. They've done a very good job in the opening two races so far. They're equal in points.
Yes.
And they're sort of 7th equal in the championship at the minute. So although they've changed seats, I think they're going to be pretty close all year. They're two good little drivers, particularly Hernandez. For me, last year was a star.
Yep, absolutely. He spent all season battling his own teammate Stefano D'Aste at the front of the independence category, and as you say, very little to choose between them. I mean, so far it's been honours absolutely even, and the difference for Felix Portero, of course, is he's now going for the independence category, which is a championship he really does have a very good chance of winning. He's going to have to beat Tom Coronel, particularly, who's already won that Yokohama Independence Trophy once a few years ago, and already the battle lines are definitely drawn with those two leading the field. And incidentally, Tom Coronel didn't run in morning warm-up this morning, not because of a major drama. They were looking to save a few engine miles on the car. They were happy with it, the way that it was running, and his teammate Tom Boardman, who's had all sorts of fuel metering and fuel mapping issues, apparently the car was running strongly in morning warm-up, so he is feeling an awful lot more confident about it. But he has had very restricted running here, and Tom Boardman's a long way down the grid. So in the independent category, a few shake-ups. Christian Poulsen, his name not on the grid graphic that you saw, but he will start from the last place on the grid. He lost all his qualifying times for missing a weighbridge when he was summoned into it. Well, in his black helmet, Ivan Muller, with a lot of work to do, and in a similar dark livery for Ricard Rydell. These guys, Rydel's on row 2 of the grid, and he and Tarquini, well, they spent all of Brazil, didn't they, nose to tail, one following the other in race 1 and vice versa in race 2. They're going to have to try and drive a wedge between the two BMs in front of them at this rolling start, or get around them or over them, under them somehow, to try and get Seat into the lead here.
But Ricard has been, he's been pretty quick virtually since they got here. He's been fastest in all the free sessions. He was right up there. I mean, he's very, very quick. He's on the, what's he, on the 4th row of the grid.
Ricard, yeah, fourth grid spot.
Fourth on the grid, and actually looking very strong.
No, absolutely. And as you say, apart from qualifying and in fact in morning warm-up, he has been quickest just about all the time out there. So he's got to hope that the temperature today, which is just a little higher than it was in the free practice session, a little higher than it was in qualifying, is not going to adversely affect his tyres too much. Looking here at our outgoing champion, Andy Prio.
It's still not too hot though. I mean, it's only 19 degrees ambient, and that's about as warm as in Edinburgh this morning. So it's not that warm. It won't burn the tyres up, in other words. It's not going to really, inside the cars when it's up to sort of 25 and 30 ambient, as they might get in Marrakesh. I mean, inside those cars, they'll get way up 40, mid-40s in terms of temperature. And they are really warm little cars. You don't wind the windows down them. You've got to keep the windows up all the time from an efficiency, an aerodynamic efficiency point of view, and really you're bringing in hot air from outside, you're ducting it into the car, but really it's like sitting in a sauna.
Good to see a classic Mexican mariachi band on the grid. I didn't notice them before, but you can quite clearly see there they are in front of our front row men with our race pole sitter for race 1, Augusto Farfus, the Brazilian, hoping for a big point scoring race 1 here. Shimmering in the lunchtime sunshine at Mexico. 24 cars on the grid here, ready to roll away for race 3 of the FIA World Touring Car Championship 2009. The first of our 2 races here in this Mexican sojourn. And with BMW on the front row of the grid for the first time ever, it promises to be entertaining, to say the very least. Trying to just think back, last year Augusto Farfus, the best BMW driver in qualifying, was 6th position. The best BMW in 2006 was Andy Prio, 10th on the grid. And in 2005, the first year here, the best BMW was Antonio Garcia, who is the only BMW driver to have scored a podium. He started 11th for race 1. So this is a big step forward for BMW, and it is a chance that must be seized with both hands, because when gifts like this fall into your lap, John Cleland, as a driver, if you let them go, you will spend the whole season cursing yourself for it.
Yeah, you've got to. These guys have got to take advantage of this, and that's what I say is that Andy Prio and Augusto Farfus here have got to get a good start, get into the first series of corners, and you've got sort of 4 or 5 corners. You've really got 6 corners, bang, 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 hard on the heels of each other, because this centre section of the track is very tight and twisty. And the Seats are going to be full-on attack from the minute the light turns green here. But these 2 BMWs have got to get a start, got to get a jump on them, and preferably try and get 2, 3, 4 car lengths out and really go for it. Very pretty nails.
That's what Leary was showing us yesterday. Augusto's charming young wife, her little false nail painted up. Seat, the championship leader in the manufacturer standings at the moment from BMW, with Lada in 3rd place, outscoring Chevrolet. Again, that's something Chevrolet wants to turn around. Mexico is a huge market for Chevrolet and General Motors. The General sells an awful lot of cars here, both of the Chevrolet type that we're seeing here, the Cruze. This is their new market leader, they're hoping, but also big American pickups. The classic American style Chevrolets also sell very well here in Mexico. So for the General, it's a huge weekend, and for BMW, it could be a really very, very big weekend as well. 4th year here in Mexico, and first time they have qualified even within, well, a decent walk of the front row of the grid, never mind within spitting distance. And pole position for Augusto Farfus, and outside front row for Andy Prio. And that's how they're going to have to go into corner 1, door handle to door handle, with no room for Seat. The field comes out of the final corner, ready for the start of race 3 of the World Touring Car Championship. The lights on the gantry are off. Augusto Farfus is on pole position. Andy Prio is on the outside of the front row of the grid, with 4 Seat Leon TDIs behind them, and they need to pace this exactly right. The Seat picks up pace very quickly indeed at the green. Away they go, and the Seats will have to go high and low.
Bit of a touch there.
Farfus got hit from behind.
Yeah.
Right behind him was Tarquini. It may have been Tarquini, it may not. It may have been
Rydell
Rydell.
looks as though he went right around the outside of that whole lot.
Rydell trying to go around,
Yeah.
and it's Farfus that leads, and Prio's got held in a sandwich. Big slide behind for Jordi Genet, who was the least well qualified of the Seats.
One of the Seats just
Ricard
run wide in there.
has gone through. He's in second place, and Muller's gone wide as well. And that is
one of the ladders there.
Yeah, that is Christian Poulsen and either Viktor Shapovalov or Cyril Ladigin. They were close to each other. So Farfus, Rydell, Prio's fought his way back up into third, ahead of one of last year's race winners, Thiago Monteiro. Tarquini got shuffled down to fifth from third. So it may have been Gabriele that bounced into the back of Augusto and had a bit of a wobble and just got squeezed.
I think Gabriele was right behind Augusto, and it was just unfortunate. I think they were all jostling for position there. And Ricard Rydell's getting a bit forceful here.
Yeah, contact again.
Yeah, quite happy to hit each other.
Well, now Andy Prio warned
Ricard
about that corner. He said turn 5 is going to be absolutely crucial for them. Going out onto the banking, coming back in again.
But push and shove here, right?
Yeah, very much. And Prio being shoved out of the way. Farfus is in second as Rydell leads.
And Jörg Muller's down the inside of Andy there.
Yes, he is. That's a good opportunistic move for Jörg Muller.
The two BMWs don't want to be hitting each other, guys. That's, Mr. Mario Tyson won't want that.
So
well, that was a good first lap from Rydell. He just muscled his way in. He's got a very quick car here, and he's just trying to prove a point.
Sergio Hernandez also trying to move up into the middle of the Seats. You can see his white BMW further back. So Rydell leads, then Farfus, Tarquini Seat third, Prio and Jörg Muller fourth and fifth, and he didn't give that space away in the end. Ivan Muller is sixth ahead of Thiago Monteiro, with Sergio Hernandez eighth, and the last of the point scorers ahead of, I imagine, Nick Larini in ninth it is, and Menu was 10th, but he's got shuffled down. And Menu and Huff very close. Huff's around the outside of Alain, so Alain's lost 4 places.
Jörg Muller is all over Andy Prio like a rash, and he was giving him a right hard time there.
And has he got by?
No, he's fallen
lost
back,
a place to Ivan Muller.
Yeah.
Ivan Muller has got by Jörg Muller, and Rydell is not escaping much. And with hot temperatures, and it's a relatively low grip surface, Seat may be worrying later in the race about tyre life.
This is a good, it's got BMW Seat, BMW Seat, BMW Seat. There's a really good mix in here, not one of them. And there's a Chevrolet up in there of Nick Larini.
That's Larini and Genet battling for 9th place at the moment. Genet still on the inside. Larini still doesn't want to give the place away, but can't avoid it. Genet goes through. And as we saw in Brazil, certainly in the early laps, the extra weight over the front wheels is really giving these Seat diesels good bite in the front. They're really able to turn tightly inside the BMWs.
Yeah, but I still think this track lends itself very much to BMW rear-wheel drive. Squats down in the corner, these slower corners to come out. But as soon as we get onto this part of the speedway here, the Seat diesel just, with much less revs, they only rev to 4,200 revs, where the BMWs rev to 8,500, twice the revs. Doesn't seem to make any difference the way they perform.
No, at the moment it's Seat BMW, Seat BMW, Seat BMW. So it's
and then a
nicely
Chevrolet
sorted
in there somewhere.
Yeah, well, in fact, top 8 is Seat and BMW alternating all the way down. Chevrolet is 10th place now. Oh, and Prio again being assaulted. He's going to have a lot of paint on the car. Ivan Muller dived to the inside. Prio got shoved offline in the very corner he's worried about all the way through. Corner 5. It falls between...
And he's going to watch Jörg Muller here, because Jörg is right with him.
Yeah. It falls between first and second gear in the BMWs with their long rear ratio, and Andy said if you get off the power in there for some reason, if you fall out of the power band, you are dead in the water. Jörg defending against Thiago Monteiro. Monteiro getting a tap from behind from Hernandez. Hernandez drifts out wide. Genet goes by his compatriot, and Monteiro has got the BMW inside.
All over the grass on the background.
Jörg went inside him, couldn't hold it. They've both gone off. Jörg comes back on, but they've both lost 3 or 4 places. Larini's now up into the points. The Seat engineers looking all over the place. It's carnage. Monteiro spins. Yes, dirt on the tyres, I imagine. Oh, and that's Jörg coming back. That's not. That's Thiago and Sergio Hernandez coming back on.
I am amazed at Nick Larini. I'm telling you, he's going to get a nosebleed since he's that high up again.
And he's not on his own either. He's got, I think, Huff behind him. Was that Huff and Menu together?
Zanardi's between Huff and Larini at the moment, and then Menu's behind Huff.
Yep. Rydell leads, and the gap was 0.61 at the line last time over Augusto Farfus. Doesn't look to be any bigger than that either.
No, it's not even that much.
Tarquini and Ivan Muller up to fourth, ahead of Priaulx, and Priaulx's right on Ivan's back bumper into turn one. Very deep. I thought they were going to collide. They haven't. And one of the Exler BMWs at the side of the track, that's Tanev.
And he's in an attacking mood here now. He's obviously trying to get past Ivan as quick as he can.
Top independent at the moment is Stefano Daste, ahead of Tom Coronel and Felix Portero. They are running 13th, 14th and 15th. Daste is in the yellow and red BMW, the Vika Sport car, when you see it. Well, it went out from 0.6 to 0.9, the lead, and it does look on this lap as though Ricard might be opening up a little bit more clean air.
He's certainly fastest man on the track.
Let's have a look here. Whoa, and that was why we saw Hernandez car coming back on.
Yeah,
I know that wasn't, yes it was, that was Hernandez.
Yeah, synchronized spinning.
Indeed. Lada's sweeping through in front of Tom Boardman, who's not making an awful lot of progress here, 19th place, and he's behind Cyril Ladigan and Jaap van Lagen. So it was Victor Shapovalov, who we saw in the opening lap, that was having dramas with his car. And as Rydell leads, Tarquini and Ivan Muller are being hounded mercilessly still by Andy Priaulx, and he's pushed Ivan right up against the back bumper of Tarquini. And if the things weren't so quick down the straight, he'd have them right where he wanted them, wouldn't he?
Yeah, but they do have some amazing amount of torque coming out of that final corner there. And Andy is, a little bit of touch and a push here.
Diving down the inside.
Down the inside of Ivan.
Well, only fair, because Ivan had a little bit of a bobble inside Andy and got by him in the first place. And that was a good move by Priaulx.
There are a couple of good clean drivers. I mean, Ivan wouldn't bash into Andy Priaulx, I don't think, and Andy certainly wouldn't do that to Ivan. They've got a huge respect for each other. But just look at that. Andy was using all of the track, and Ivan wasn't even using the full racing line there.
Didn't have to, did he? No. Shorter distance, and it can deal with it. So there's no point in swinging all the way around the outside if you don't have to.
So what we got, Larini's 8th place at the moment, which is on the reverse grid for the second race, puts him on pole position. And that would be an interesting concept, that.
And Zanardi is 0.3 of a second behind him, with leading the log jam, which includes Huff and Menu, who are a 10th of a second apart.
But they're a good bit back from...
Yeah, they dropped 2 seconds behind.
They've dropped well back.
That's why. Huff's had a ding in the door somewhere. So there is Rob in 10th at the line last time, but actually, I'm not sure that's where he is now. No.
He's got a puncture?
No, is that water? Now, I got heavily chastised for just suggesting that it might have been a new car problem like overheating that saw Rob retiring from a race in Brazil, but that suggests to me that it might possibly be a water leak.
No, I'm not so sure. I think that was a...
Is that throttle cable again?
No, it wasn't even a throttle cable. It looked to me like it was a little bit of a puncture. It was lying down slightly on itself.
Could well be.
Just have been the wing or the front splitter catching on it, but who knows?
Could well be. Rydell and Farfus setting both very quick times, and the gap remains at 0.69. So
well, the fastest car now on the track is Augusto Farfus.
Yeah.
He's just set fastest lap.
139.71, 139.74 for Jörg Muller, who's still 7th and trying to recover. And, well, Priaulx in the middle of this little sandwich can't escape Jörg, Ivan Muller rather, so can't get quite close enough to Tarquini, and having to drive very defensively, John, in the middle of the road there between those two corners, just to try and make sure that Ivan had the long way only as an option for overtaking.
Yeah, they're not allowed to dive around the track, but these guys know that if they're trying to get past the guy in front and he moves a little bit to make life really awkward for them, they're not going to give a space easily. You do everything you can to keep the bloke behind you. But the trouble is that every time you compromise your line, you're going a little bit slower. It may only be a 10th of a second, or something like that. You're losing the guy in front. The guy in front's getting away because he can choose his own racing line.
That's exactly what's happening with Tarquini. Not getting away by much. He'd be getting away not at all if Prio just got one clean lap where he didn't have to compromise his own speed. There is Larini and Zanardi. That's the battle for 8th place. 6 laps into this 16-lap race.
See, Zanardi is the only BMW this year that's running a sequential gearbox. In other words, it's not an H pattern box in that BMW. So when he's compromised a little bit with what he's able to do, everything, he works the throttle, he works the brake, he does everything with his hands. And the sequential box makes life an awful lot easier for him. And it's obviously showing now in this tight, twisty centre section of this track.
You notice the way Larini pulled away from him through that long final corner, the south banking. He really opened up several car lengths, and Alex took the whole length of the straight just to get them back. So the Chevrolet certainly seems to be handling pretty well.
Yeah, but not well enough to be right at the front. That's I think if they were to finish in this position right now, Nick Larini's on the front row of the grid for the second race, I think he'll get swallowed up quite quickly by the BMWs and the Seats behind. They haven't really got that Chevrolet bang on yet.
Be interesting to see just how hard he can defend, but with a standing start he'll have to worry about what's behind him. And if in the end he finished in 8th place with Jörg Müller in 7th, then that would pretty much be a non-starter as far as Larini's concerned. There is Jörg just in front, and Jörg's not thinking about 7th, is he? He's thinking about getting by Jordi Genet for 6th position.
So what have we got? Rydell, Farfus, Tarquini, Prio, Ivan Müller, Jordi Genet and Jörg Müller, and then Nick Larini in 8th place.
Yeah, so at the moment, Genet trying to hold off Jörg Müller and Larini trying to hold off Alex Zanardi. Both BMWs are all over the back of the front-wheel drive car in front of them. This is Andy Prio with Ivan Müller still close to his back bumper. Oh no, it's not. That's Jörg Müller who's just gone by Jordi Genet. I'm sorry. So that is a change. Jörg's finally got by.
And unfortunately for the British viewers, Rob Huff is looking very much. He's dropping way down the order here. I suspect we'll find him in the pits. And I think we don't know what's wrong, but I'd bet that maybe it was a puncture.
Yep. There was certainly either liquid or smoke pouring off the right front corner of the car. So. George Tanev is out, Marin Kolak is out as well, and Rob Huff is now 2 laps down, so that means he is parked or being repaired, and they may try and get it out before the end of the race. We're only at the midway distance anyway, so he's got a chance perhaps.
Fastest car on the track now is Jörg Müller, followed by Rickard Rydell, but Jörg is on it, and he just needs a bit of space to get caught up on the guys in front here.
He really is picking up the speed, because the last time we looked 2 or 3 laps ago he was doing a 39.7. He's just done a 39.1 on his first lap clear of Genet, so big speed differential there. Rickard Rydell, Augusto Farfus and Ivan Müller all in the 39s. 139.38 for Rickard last lap, but 139.14 for Jörg Müller. So the graphic not telling you the whole story.
Not up to date.
That was the top 3 drivers rather than the fastest 3 drivers. There is Tom Boardman.
Being hassled by a ladder.
Yeah, by Jaap van Lagen. Well, Jaap does like to roll his sleeves up and hassle and hustle a car, and he's certainly got plenty of potential for that. Tom's done probably about a dozen laps in the car before qualifying, and it may be that the fueling he's now finding is still not quite spot on in that car. His teammate Tom Coronel also struggling for speed though. Felix Portero is now back in charge of the independent category ahead of Stefano D'Aste, and they were 1 and 2, 11th and 12th. Tom Coronel, Franz Engsler and Tom Boardman here, are 3rd, 4th and 5th in the Indies at the moment.
Van Lagen's certainly keeping him fairly honest. If he makes one slight mistake, Van Lagen's going to be past him here.
I was going to say, Jaap's carrying an onboard camera, so it'll be interesting to see the battle from there. There you see the big curbs, these big long red sausage-shaped curbs on the inside of the curb, and Jaap being very careful to avoid those.
Yeah, well, they're about 6 inches high, and the last thing you need to do is just catch one of those. That just would not be, wouldn't be good for the suspension of the car. Now, there's Jörg Müller gone faster yet again. That's the fastest lap of the race so far. and he's a tenth faster than Ricard Rydell. So if he was at the front here, I think he'd be giving Ricard a bit more of a hard time.
Yes, he's going, getting on for half a second quicker than Augusto Farfus, his teammate, who is in second place. And Augusto just not close enough. He's again about 9/10 away from Ricard. So, but after, Priaulx looking for third and gets it from Tarquini, and through goes Yvan Muller as well.
Good move. The trouble is that might just have compromised Andy's speed onto the straight.
He's going
to have to protect down the inside lane here to make sure that Yvan doesn't see. He's just moving across to the inside of the wall. Make sure Yvan doesn't get anywhere near him. Make him go the long way round about.
Yvan's getting the toe, but interesting that he couldn't pull out and go alongside, which you would have expected from last year's performances.
Well, they have lost a little bit of horsepower. They're 17 brake horsepower down because they've got a much smaller, slightly smaller restrictor plate now. But that's 17 brake horsepower. Most drivers probably wouldn't even notice that.
But is it just enough to blunt that extra little edge, just to level things out? Well, there's contact with Priaulx on the inside.
I think, you know, that was really... Tarquini just moved a little bit too far in. He just missed the apex of the corner, and Andy took advantage of it. That's the thing about Andy. You give him a little bit of a space and he's gone. He doesn't have to think about it twice. So I don't think that was any... You know, Gabrielli can't come back at him later on and say, you pushed me off. He left him the space. Andy took advantage of it.
Well, he'd expect no less from Gabrielli. If Andy drifted offline and tried to shut the door and found Gabrielli's foot in there, he'd know that it was his mistake. So Priaulx now up to third place. Previously unprecedented heights for the former world champions BMW. Yvan Muller in fourth, Gabriele Tarquini down to fifth, so he lost 2 places there, Gabriele.
I think Nick Larini in the background there looked as though he just got out of shape, and Zanardi, I think, nailed him for 8th place. He turned into the left-hander there, and I'm sure he got a little bit out of shape.
Not holding the shot quite long enough. Let's see. Let's hold the shot here if we can. That's third, fourth and fifth. 6th is Jörg Muller. Let's look on the straight, the nose of a Seat.
I think you'll find...
That's Genet and Larini. I think it was blue, so he may just have survived that, and Zanardi might have lost ground. They were half a second apart last lap, and as they come across the line, that looks to have changed. So Zanardi has lost a bit of ground. And was that Huff back out?
No, I think that was Alain. I think that's Alain Menu.
Right. Menus, yeah, that'll be Menu and Montero. This is our independent leader then, Felix Portero, up from third, ahead of Stefano D'Aste, and Tom Coronel is several places behind. Portero and D'Aste are nose to tail on the track, relatively 13th and 14th, so the car behind, should be Stefano D'Aste, but seems to be not. How does that work? Sergio Hernandez. Okay, so D'Aste has dropped down to 14th place. So D'Aste had a bit of a... Sorry, our timing screen is refreshing itself very slowly. There is D'Aste, and he is behind Thiago Montero and Sergio Hernandez.
So we've got 5 laps to go here, and Ricard is holding off Augusta very nicely.
That's not 9/10 of a second anymore, though, is it?
No.
It was 0.4 at the line.
That's about 9 feet.
Yeah. So suddenly, Augusto has pulled half a second of Ricard's lead away, and if he can do that in a lap or two, he can probably pull the other half in a lap or two as well.
He's only taken 0.05 of a second off him on that lap, but all it needs is to just get a little bit closer, give Ricard a hassle, maybe a wee kiss on the back bumper, just to keep him occupied.
Well, Ricard has not been... Well, he did a 39.4, he's just done a 39.3. Farfus's last 2 laps, 39.0 and 39.4. And the reason he's done a 39.4 is because he's now come up against the back of the Seat and is basically doing the speed that the Seat is doing.
Yeah, I was wrong. That was it wasn't Nick Larini. In the background, it must have been Alain Menu got out of shape and got past with
Hernandez.
Montero, I think. No, I think it was actually Montero that got Alain.
Priaulx fastest lap, so the BMW's tyres are still working well as the fuel load burns off. This is lap 11 completed, lap 12 they're on now of 16. And see the gap?
It's certainly
come down from 0.8 to 0.4 in 1 lap. That was 2 laps ago, and now it's pretty much stationary because the only way he can get any closer is by getting alongside. And as we saw with Andy Priaulx down the straight, there's no real advantage for either driver here in this battle in terms of straight line speed. So Farfus is going to have to be very good through the long, wearing final corner to get a really solid toe off Ricard, and then somehow try and outbrake him around the outside, because Ricard's not going to leave the door open on the inside by any stretch of the imagination.
So fastest driver on the track now is Andy Priaulx, then Jörg Müller. So we've got 2 BMWs fastest again.
And Ivan seems to still be finding speed in that Seat. He's in 4th place, but he is over a second behind Priaulx. There you see the gap behind. Priaulx is the second of the BMWs, the white cars. And Augusto Farfus still right with Ricard. So is he going to be able to force an error out of Ricard Rydell?
Ricard doesn't make too many errors, that's the thing, but he needs to be a little bit closer and hassle him, really just give him a hard time. And with 3 laps to go, I'm not sure he's got enough pace, and he's just dropped back half a dozen car lengths there now, which either that Ricard's wakened up and thought, I must just get my finger out of here.
Maybe Ricard has just finally decided he's going to flay the tyres with all he's got. Behind this battle, this is 5th and 6th. Jörg Müller now right on the back of Gabriele Tarquini, and this is Jörg's bumper cam, I'm thinking, because that's a pretty close view of a Seat. Oh, and he's looking at the inside, and that's where Gabriele went wrong before. He drifted offline. He was half a car's width away, tiniest of touches, and John, that's enough to just fully open the door, and through he went.
Well, that's what I said. It was the same move exactly that Andy Priaulx pulled in Gabriele. Gabriele's clearly struggling with the front tyres. He's just aiming for the apex and not quite making it, so the car's understeering a little bit. In other words, it's just pushing from the front of the car, and it's not getting him. All it wants is 3 or 4 feet adrift of that apex, and bam, somebody's through.
And look at the difference now. There's Gabriele behind as we look back from Jörg Müller, and Jörg is just starting to drive away from him. This is very different from how we've seen Mexico in the 3 previous visits, where the BMWs have struggled for speed because they've struggled for grip. Now they're finding grip. It's the same tyre ostensibly. It's roughly the same temperature. The cars aren't much different. So all you can really say is it's a grippier surface. This was previously the lowest grip track in the entire calendar, and it looks as though it's had a lot more racing use, it's a lot more rubbered up, and it's a lot cleaner as well, probably because those curbs not allowing a lot of sand to be thrown up, not just this weekend but any weekend, and so it's not full of sand.
But the BMWs have quite clearly found something. They've been away and they've been in a little huddle since Curitiba, thinking about where do they need to be, what do they need to do to make this car better. And they have obviously done it, because you've got Farfus, Priaulx and Jörg Müller all going very, very well. And even further down, you've got Hernandez doing a good job as well. And, you know, they're on it. The cars are good.
Absolutely they are. So is Nicola Larini looking for points here in 8th position, and that, of course, gives him pole position for race 2 if he stays in 8th position. And it will be the first point for a Chevrolet driver of the season.
I would, I'm quite sure we'll have Ray Malek on the phone in a minute saying, would you stop talking about my guys, please, because it's the kiss of death. You say that Nick Larini's going to be in pole position in 2 laps to go. You probably find it breaks down now after you've said that.
Right, here we go.
This is getting very
for the
close.
lead. Absolutely it is. And this is exactly where Farfus needed to be. Did he give his tyres a rest for a lap to summon up a little bit of momentum?
No, I don't think he did. He just he needs really to be a little bit closer there, just to get a slight toe. Not enough to come out the slipstream and get him, though.
He's got to force something, hasn't he? He's got to make Rydell make a mistake, miss an apex, so that there's somewhere to shove his nose in where it's not really wanted.
He's attached to that by a little bit of string now, right on him.
Farfus is working really hard for this, but Rydell is working equally hard. Priaulx is closing. 1:38.07 for Priaulx, fastest man on the track that lap, and Victor Shapovalov's Lada is in the pits.
You're going to have, in fact, Farfus will be able to see Rydell's eyes in the mirror sticking out on stalks. He'll be watching him to see exactly where he's at. The thing to do now would be to flick the lights off and on and just annoy him.
Yeah. duck and dive all over
Yeah.
the place and just really upset him, and hope that somehow that gets him. Look how close Prio is to
Yeah.
Farfus now. That's how much Rydell's holding Farfus up.
Well, I'm not so sure they're holding him up. They're all going very quickly, but Andy's a second a lap faster on that last lap than both Rydell and Farfus. So he's got this car dialed in properly now. Bodes well for the second race, but I think with one lap to go, Andy's not going to get close enough just to have a lunge and get the two of them. I think that would be fairly game.
Prio 138.0, Farfus 139.0, Rydell 139.3 seconds on the last lap. 15 laps.
Quite a considerable
coming up
difference.
to completion.
Andy's fastest lap from the next fastest lap in the race is quite a considerable difference.
Very considerable difference.
7/10 of a second.
Yes, 7/10 of a second. Yes, you're right.
7/10 of a second faster than anyone else. So
and
this track surface is now suiting these BMWs very much. They're just getting the tyres to work really nicely.
Last lap. 1, 2, 3, as close as that. Rydell, Farfus, Prio as they flash by the camera. Ivan Muller is in 4th place for Seat, Jörg Muller 5th for BMW. They're 2 seconds apart from each other. Tarquini is in 6th, Genet 7th, Larini 8th, then Hernandez 9th place, but should be no threat to Nicola Larini. But are we going to see a change for the podium? Prio's got the speed and he's catching Farfus very fast.
The thing is, Farfus has now had to take his eye off Rydell and protect his back, because Andy's going to be all or nothing here in the last half lap.
He'll take a point as happily off Farfus as he will off Rydell. Points are points, doesn't matter who used to have them. If you get them, that's the important thing. Prio's looking to the inside, up to the outside. Rydell's gone. Farfus is going to have to defend here. It's every man for himself at BMW. Prio is definitely trying to take second away. What's Farfus got left? Not enough. Had to really block hard. And Prio will be saying, come on, that wasn't entirely fair, was it?
I think it was entirely fair, because whether they're in the same car, if that car behind had been yellow or blue, he'd have done exactly the same thing. It doesn't matter. They're competitors against each other. They may well be in BMWs, but that was an entirely fair move, and I would have done exactly the same thing to Andy.
Out of the last corner comes Rickard Rydell. He is heading towards victory, and the checkered flag waves. Seat win, but Farfus in second, Prio in 3rd place. Ivan Muller 4th, Jörg Muller 5th, Gabriele Tarquini in 6th position. 3 Seat TDIs, 3 BMW 320 SIs in the top half dozen. And we will hopefully see, yes, there's the cars to the line. Genet 7th, Larini in 8th place.
Pole position for race 2.
So, front wheel drive, top 3. There is Charlie Lamb, very happy with the Schnitzer boys as well. This is definitely manna from heaven for them. They were not expecting that, but Rickard's engineer and the Seat boys have something to celebrate as well. A win for Seat, yet another one. That's their 9th podium and their 3rd win in succession. So Rickard Rydell took pole in 2006, didn't manage to win a race. Both races were dominated by Alfa Romeo, 1-2 in both races. There's Bart Mampai, Andy Prio's team boss, and he looks pretty happy with the way things have gone for the BMW Team UK outfit as well. So it is victory for Rickard Rydell, and that will move him into the lead of the championship before the 4th race, which will be coming up shortly. Andy Prio and Augusto Farfus just having a quick discussion of tactics in the last lap, possibly. And 2nd and 3rd, certainly a lot more than they expected coming in here. Possibly slightly disappointed that Rickard managed to squeeze past them on the 1st lap, John, because it was that move by Rydell around the outside that gave him the victory.
Yeah, it did. And Rickard took that and he was gone. But interestingly, Farfus and Prio there were having a word with each other about possibly the last couple of laps in that race, and I'd love to have been a microphone inside one of those crash helmets.
Yes.
There was definitely something being said, like Andy probably said, you pulled across in front of me, that wasn't really fair, I was faster, I was a second a lap faster, they were on the phone to me telling me that, you know, da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, who cares? they're second and third. They've done a great job.
Absolutely. And in the end, it's points. And as we said earlier, it doesn't matter where they come from. If you can take them, you absolutely have to seize that opportunity with both hands. And they have done exactly that. Augusto Farfus might have hoped perhaps for a win, but still, even a second place this weekend, if he gets nothing else in race 2, is probably more than they're expecting. Talked to Andy before the weekend, and he said, I was sort of thinking maybe I might get 10 points. And then I thought, that's wildly over-optimistic. Maybe a couple would be nice. Maybe top 8 in qualifying would be nice. He starts on the front row, finishes race 1 on the podium. I think this weekend is already looking like it might have exceeded what he might realistically have expected.
And out of all of that, we missed Alan Menu going out too. So I suspect it was Menu that was getting a little drifty at the back. Something happened, whether it's, I don't know what it would be, but he ended up 20th and Huff was 21st.
Rickard Riedel, congratulations to the win, but it was a tough fight at the end against Augusto.
Yeah, shit, I was a bit tired at the end because he was pushing all the time, and I was just looking where he was all the time, but still trying to do my lines. And I'm really, really pleased. We didn't expect to win here because when we looked at the warm-up times, the BMW were really, really strong in the long run. And as you could see at the end, Andy Priol was coming very, very fast. So I'm really pleased with the win.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thanks.
He's got to be really pleased that it was Augusto Farfus behind him rather than Andy Priol, hasn't he? Because Farfus did the perfect Seat defence job by desperately hanging on to his own position.
Yeah, he did, but I think Andy probably wouldn't have gotten past either. I think Rickard was... He wasn't going to give that win up. It's a day or two since Rickard won a race, and he really needed to do that. So I don't think it would have mattered whether Andy was second and Farfus was third. I don't think Andy would have got through either.
The only advantage Andy had was he did have a big head of steam, lots of momentum coming up fast from behind. But you're right, he would have had to have caught him in exactly the right corner and gone straight by, or the door would have been firmly shut. Rickard's not going to roll over and let his belly be tickled by anybody.
No, not at all. So it's going to be interesting for the second race with Larini and Jordi Genet on the front row of the grid, then Tarquini and Muller, then Ivan Muller and Andy Priol, and then Farfus and Riedel.
What will be very entertaining, possibly, is the prospect of, at the end of this weekend, us sitting down and going, so Nick Larini chooses Mexico of all tracks to win his first race, and BMW also score loads of points. That was a very bizarre weekend. It could possibly happen. Larini, still the only Chevrolet driver to score a point this season. It's like last year, being very difficult for Chevrolet here in Mexico and Brazil.
I don't think that's going to work because looking at the fastest time that Nick Larini did, he did a 1:40.2, and Andy Priol's fastest lap was a 1:38.0, so he was 2 seconds a lap faster than Nick Larini. So I think Larini will maybe even be a bit of a roadblock at the start of this next race.
Yeah, Larini did finish 23 seconds behind the winner, so
in 16 laps.
Yes, so he has got some pace still to find out. That's the view of the Kristen Poulsen incident. And Marin Kolak, we didn't see what had happened to him. Oh dear. Do you think he met a sausage on the curb there? That is a very broken steering arm. But once the race got underway, plenty of action to follow all the way, and the BMWs, for the first time ever, starting to find themselves in a competitive frame of mind here in Mexico, keeping the attention. But in the end, Rickard Riedel leading from the first corner to the last. Jumped the front row BMWs at the start, managed to wriggle his way through, and that proved decisive for him to claim his first win in Mexico. So Seat now with 1, 2, 3, 4 wins here in Mexico, and a total of 9 drivers have stood on the podium in yellow shirts. The first of whom, lest we forget, was Peter Terting, who won here with a Toledo in the first year we came here, 2005, ahead of Antonio Garcia up until that stage, the only man to put a BMW on a podium in a race in Puebla. Now, Augusto Farfus and Andy Prio have evened that up a little bit in 2009, but certainly quite entertaining. There's the Pro Team boys in the blue shirts. Felix Portero winning the independents category ahead of Stefano D'Aste. Franz Enxler, BMW, getting ahead of Tom Coronel's Seat. So BMW 1, 2, 3 in the independent category. And John, pretty much reflecting what happened in the main race. BMW competitive against the petrol Seat Leon there and against the diesel turbo Seat Leon in the front of the field.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't think this championship. I mean, I think after Curitiba, people were beginning already to say these Seats again. They've got an advantage. They've got this, that, and the next thing. It was far too early to be starting to make judgment calls on whether they should have more weight or less weight or who was going to get what. This has proven today that okay, the Seats are still. They've won a race, but BMW's back in the hunt. The guys that need to get their act together here, the reliability to begin with. Are the Chevrolet boys. They've got to get these three cars right up at the sharp end of this race, and they've got to do it quickly. Otherwise, they might as well, they're going to write the season off if they're not careful. Well, you only win championships by finishing races.
Yep.
And Muller was the man last year that proved that. He only failed to finish twice, or failed to score points twice. And that's how you win championships.
Absolutely right. Well, we may yet have a season that needs Bernie Ecclestone's Formula One most wins as a decider, because the wins are being spread around 3 different drivers from 3 starts. In the independents category, though, that young man, Felix Portero, being a little greedy. This is win number 3 of the season for him.
He must be feeling really pleased with himself, because he effectively got bumped from the Rivalia team, and he was out of a job effectively until a few weeks before the start of the championship, and all of a sudden, boom, there he is in an independent, proving that he's very capable of being on a podium anytime that there's a race to go at.
So we did get the first strains of the Swedish anthem for Rickard Rydell, our race winner, but
they probably haven't got a Swedish anthem on tap.
No, I think Sandy's got all the music with her. We should have the Spanish anthem for our winning constructor Seat. And certainly Felix Portero's been on the podium 3 times out of 3 so far, which Sergio Hernandez hasn't been able to do. Here we go. Met with a degree of... See, where's the mariachi band when you need them? I bet they could have come up with something. It might not have been the Swedish anthem, but it would have been something.
I'm telling you, they didn't expect Rickard to win this race, because they don't even have a Swedish anthem in the tape file. Might as well. He's raced that often in the UK. They may as well give him a national anthem.
Just play God Save the Queen. He's honorary Brit anyway, isn't he, to most of the British fans? Well, there is a real Brit Guernsman, Andy Prio, on the 3rd step of the podium. That's a genuine smile of contentment, I think. Very happy with that. Of course, in 5 minutes, it'll be, yeah, well, I had the speed to win the race, so where are we going to get that from next? But that's entirely inherent in the beast. Unless you are the winner, you want to know why you didn't win and improve it next time. And even if you are the winner, you still want to improve it next time so the other guys don't catch you. That's how you stay a winner.
Yeah, you do. Even if you win the race, as Rickard has done, he won't go back to the pits now and sit down and have his lunch and a cup of whatever.
He will.
But he will. But he'll be all over the data. He'll be with his engineer. He'll be trying to work out what's going to make it work and what's not. Because he starts 8th, remember, further back, twice as far back as he started that last race. So he's got a job to do if he wants to win a second race. It'd be quite impressive if he can do that.
I don't know what Felix Portero's house is like, but I imagine he might be needing a bit of a bigger trophy room quite soon, because he is starting to rack up the old trophies here. Had a few last year for various different podium appearances when he was with the BMW Italia Spain outfit, Roberto Ravaglia's crew, but he's already exceeded that this year, just in 3 starts in the independents category. And for Tom Coronel to be pushed down to 4th place points, just ahead of teammate Tom Boardman in 5th, the Seat driver is already going to struggle to hang on to Portero, I think, in these opening couple of race weekends. Now, what might well happen is we may find that Seat's petrol-engined Leon may get a weight break for Marrakesh, but I'm not sure it's going to be. Careful of those pointy bits.
They definitely look dangerous, don't they?
They definitely do. And queso? So is that the Spanish for cheese? Something like that. Anyway, photo option for the crews down there. And a suitable lunch break. Next race starts at 3:30 local time. We'll be live on air. That is 22:30 CET on Eurosport live for race 2. That is 9:30 Greenwich Mean Time. 21:30 GMT for race 2.